So today we're going to be going through, what are the different checks that are done at different stages of the application. So what should I be doing as a approver? What should TradeShield be doing? And what information is provided for us? So I just want to start out with saying that I'm hijacking today's session, and that's only because I am absolutely passionate about making sure that we check the right information and make sure that we give enough commentary to the next person to make sure that they understand what it was that we checked in the first place. So let's go have a quick look at the workflow stages. So where does the workflow go and what's that stage called? So I'm quite a visual learner, so let's draw the most beautiful picture you've ever seen in your life together. I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's say that your company, we're going to make them into circles. Okay, so the circle, this is your company. So we have what we would refer to as the initiator of the workflow. And so this is the person that goes and sends the application. Now, each company is different. Some companies, this is the salesperson. Some companies, this is the credit team that sends the application to the customer. So we go ahead and we initiate a workflow, right? Then it goes through what we refer to as the initial risk check. Now, some companies have it set up that it always goes through this, and some companies have that only if it fails does it go through this risk. I think it's called the initial risk check. And this is where we go and see, is there something about this customer that we want you to know before they go and fill in the credit application? So before they've gone and wasted their time, we tell you, are there judgments? Have they been doing business longer than 12 months? Is there something negative about any of the directors? And we put this in the message for your team to say, wait a minute, do you still want to continue? Do you want to change the credit limit? Do you want to change the terms? So let's say, for example, it's a customer with a judgment, and your credit policy says we don't trade with customers who have judgments. Therefore, it could be that we either don't trade at all or we want to change them to COD. So this goes to your team, and that's why it's in a circle, because this is checked by your team to say, is there something about this customer? So it is the risk checks before the customer completes the application, and this goes to your team as well. So your team, somebody in your company, is therefore responsible to say we do want to move forward or we don't want to move forward. Once the initial risk check team has completed their portion, it then goes through to the customer. So let's make the customer a different color. They can be purple, okay? And we call this stage over here, this is when they're going to fill out the credit application. The wording may change a little bit, but it says waiting for client to fill out application. Okay, so hopefully that is quite straightforward as to where it is. Where is it? It's waiting for the client to fill out the application. Now, I say that the person that is responsible at this point in time, yes, it's the customer, but it's also the person who sent that credit application or the salesperson that is responsible for it, because a salesperson is measured on revenue that they bring in. And the only way to say that I have achieved this goal or this revenue that I'm bringing in is a signed contract. So it is still their responsibility to make sure that it gets over the line. How would they do that? When they send the application and TradeShield says this application has been sent to your customer, pick up the phone and phone your customer and say, hello, Mr. Customer, did you get the application? Maybe check your spam folder, whatever the case is. These are things that they can go ahead and make sure that they do, or offer help. Mr. Customer, do you need any help? Do you have any questions? Do you want to reach out to TradeShield support? Once the customer has completed the application, it then comes through to TradeShield. And this, let's make us blue. And this is TradeShield. And we go ahead and do something called validation. Okay, so we go and do validation. So what do we validate? And this is TradeShield. So we go and have a look and say, your company asked us or ask this company for bank statements or financials. So let's go ahead and have a look at an application quickly. Okay, so my validation team goes and says, right, you asked for 3 months bank statements or financials. Did this person provide this information? So we're going to go all the way down to where, okay, this one was skipped, but we're going to go and have a look and see what documents were attached. And if this person did not provide us with financials, then we're going to send it back to your customer. So this is TradeShield sending it back to your customer. And we say, hello, Mr. Customer, you did not provide us with financials, or your financials are not in a valid state. In other words, maybe you put management accounts. And for those who don't know, management accounts are financials that you track on a monthly basis, but it's not checked by anyone outside of the company. So we want audited financials, meaning some other external auditor came and checked that this is actually the values, because otherwise anyone can put together a spreadsheet. Okay, so we call this awaiting additional information. And we also tell the person who requested it. So we tell this person that this has happened as well. So you get an email. So in other words, you say that, Mr. Customer and Mr. Salesperson, that this information is missing. So my team is going to validate that the bank statements that we asked for were the latest 3 months, that they had the correct amount of transactions. So there has to be at least a solid 3-month transactional data, at least more than 10 per month, and that it is in a system-generated PDF. So what does that mean? You went onto the bank account, you downloaded it, and you attached it, versus that of a PDF. And how you can tell the difference between like a static scan is that a static scan document has one layer. It's just an image. And if you select it, it will select the entire picture. Whereas a system-generated PDF, you can actually highlight different areas on that PDF. And I know it doesn't look like it, but there's actually different codes in the background. So we would then go back to them and say, this is incorrect. Yes, Martin, you have a question.
Yes, you are touching on such an important point at the moment, and maybe you're going to get to it. My request is just when they do a skip application, because that also happens, that they separate the attachments, because we're talking about attachments and how important they are. Not to bundle them together, because then the system doesn't see them. But if you say there's balance sheets, financial statements attached, there's bank statements attached, there are specific areas where these documents should be uploaded. So please, guys, ensure that you upload them in the correct bracket. Otherwise, we don't know about them, we don't see them. So credit application, financial statements, bank statements, and don't bundle them together into one space.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's what my team is going to validate. We're also going to check the signature to say, if I said my name was Amy, and did the email address that was used for that one-time PIN match or have any correlation to Amy? Has it got my surname? Has it got my name? Has it got anything to do with me? And if it doesn't, we will raise an issue to say that this document was not signed by the correct person. So we will also notify you to say that there is a signature issue or a signature validation issue. So those are the things that our team is going to check. Okay. Then what's going to happen after that, once it has passed through the validation stage and everything that the team has checked is now checked, why is it not staying there? Okay, it then goes through to the research stage or the report stage, and I'm just using the TradeShield color here again. And this is where we're going to do the financial analysis, if there is anything. And we're going to do the limit recommendation. Okay, so that's what our team is then going to do. We're going to check those financials and we're going to make sure that we give you a limit recommendation. In other words, it's no longer this customer is a medium risk. It's now a matter of, do I want to provide this information? Do I want to give them all of the amount, none of the amount, more than that, what they've asked for? That's the limit recommendation. Then if you have a credit insurance step, it will then go through to your credit insurance step, which is again back to your company to go and request credit insurance on that particular customer. So again, this is back with your team for them to go and apply for credit insurance if that's what they need to do. If you don't have credit insurance, then you won't have this step at all, okay? But then what happens from there on, it then moves to your different levels of approval. Now, every company's levels of approval are different. You could have up to 5 levels of approval, and it can be based on amounts, or it can be based on always. For example, level 1 and level 2 can be approved by my credit manager if it's below 200,000 Rand. And if it's above 200,000 Rand, it now needs to go to my senior credit manager or my divisional credit manager, and then it needs to go to my CFO, and then it needs to go to my CEO, depending on the value. So we've got levels 1 to 5. Okay. And once it has processed through everybody giving their approvals, then it goes through to what we call the data capture step, which is again someone in your team that goes and captures this information into your ERP. Okay. So that's the flow. Okay, hopefully you can now see who's responsible for what. But let's talk about what happens over here at level approval 1. Okay, so let's go and have a look at where that is. So if I go through to my TradeShield workflow overview section, and I'm going to see those stage names right over here. Okay, so you can see this one, Joburg International, is at final approval level 1. You can click on the assigned to button, and here you're going to see who are the members in that team. So if I had a problem, I'm going to phone any one of these people. And so, for example, if I phone Martin, is that going to help me? No, because Martin is not an approval level 1. If I am also not an approval level 1 and I click on the open button, I'm going to get an error 401. Why? Because I am not that person. Okay, so very important to note that if you're not the person to approve it, you cannot click on the open button. But now let's go have a look at this level approval 1 stage. So here we're going to go and do a certain amount of checks. Now, if you are the level 1 and or level 2, these are the things you should be checking. So first and foremost, who is the customer? When was the request date? Who is the salesperson? Okay. Then we're going to want to look at the full application as well as the research report, but we'll come to that in a minute. First, we're going to look at what was requested, what was recommended, okay, and what is the maximum risk-adjusted limit. So let's talk about what is the difference between the maximum risk-adjusted limit and the recommended limit. The maximum risk-adjusted limit is looking at the maximum capacity that someone can spend with you, right? That is not overlaying that with the risk factors. It's saying if we didn't have to care about risky things, how much could this customer afford to spend with me? So we're only looking at affordability. We're not looking at whether or not we're going to get paid. Okay, so that is what that maximum risk-adjusted limit says. It says how much can this customer afford to pay with me? Then we overlay that with our risk scores, so our payment risk and our default risk, and we make a recommendation. This gives you an indication to say, where can I go with this customer if they have a good payment risk and a good default risk, which in this case they do, which means there's room to grow. It also means that if this customer comes tomorrow and says, can we actually double our credit limit to 800,000, we would be able to say, absolutely, straight off the bat. Okay, so now we can see that they also requested 60-day terms. We're going to check the 3 different areas that TradeShield is providing you. The first one is the knockout stage. Are they in business? Do not grant credit to customers that are not in a valid business status, because then if you go to court, the court is going to say, did you do your due diligence? And if the answer is no, they will not grant you that judgment. The next is what we just spoke about now, that maximum capacity. And here you can see how we calculated it and a certain amount of other things that are involved, such as what is their turnover? Have we got financials on hand? Have we got bank statements on hand? So you can see if the person provided you with financials attached and you do not see financials over here, it means they were not captured. And the reason for that is either you didn't upload it under the correct upload area if this was a skip application. Therefore, the team at TradeShield did not see it, okay, and you would need to reprocess this application. So that's number one. Or there was a problem and the customer did not want to provide us with the correct information. In other words, they didn't have audited financials or they didn't want to provide us with audited financials, and therefore our team did not capture it. And the third option, which does sometimes happen, unfortunately, is that there is human error, and sometimes that also does happen. So it's important for you to check the customer provided financials, did TradeShield capture those financials? And or if they provided bank statements, did TradeShield capture those bank statements? And you'll see that here as well, which is under the bank statement section. Okay. Then we want to look at the scores. So they have a medium default risk and a medium payment risk. We're going to look and see if there are any other documentation. So for example, this person gave a motivation and just said that it was a skip application, and they attached the credit application over here. So now we're going to want to look at this credit application, but if it was a full, they did the actual credit application on TradeShield as they should have, we're going to want to click on the full application. And this is where it really begins for you as the level 1 approver. So we're going to want to check the credit limit requested. We've now looked at this recommended limit. We then go and have a look. What documentation did this person attach? Okay. What, what questions did they fill out? Let me see if I can find an application that had some questions that were actually filled out. I might have to use a different one. But you're going to want to go and look and see what questions did this person fill out, because we want to know if I asked for bank statements, did they give bank statements? Did they give financials? Did they give, let me just go and pick a random customer of mine. Whoopsie daisy waisies, not there. Just a moment. I'm just going to quickly pick a random customer's test account so that I can go ahead and just choose some information on that test account. If you wouldn't mind just bearing with me. I'm just logging in. I want to show you if we had completed some questions, what would that have looked like? Okay. So I'm just going to scroll down so we go back to where we were. Okay. So here we're going to want to have a look and see, if we scroll down, we're going to want to look and see under the risk checks, who did what. And if it says Inoxico ESB, that means that TradeShield was the one who went and did the check, which means it didn't fail any knockout rules. And if it did, then the person would have made a comment. Then here we can see what the previous approvers have said. So for example, this is prover level 1, and they made a comment that just said demo. Now, what I would recommend is when you're on an approver level, you want to make sure that you're giving all the information that you've checked so that the next person doesn't need to check that information. Okay, so here you're going to want to look at all the custom questions that your customer has filled out. Did they give you the information that you needed? For example, please select the department that you belong to. So we've got all these questions, and I'm going to need to know that they actually answered it. Is your company, does your company have a legal registered name or a trading name? No. Okay, fine. These are all the documents and the contact information, and then I can see all the attachments. I'm going to want to check the attachments. Did this person actually give me a copy of their ID? Does it match the name that they've also given me over here? Are they VAT registered? Wonderful. Did they attach that correct VAT document? So I'm going to want to check this information. Is this part of a buying group? Yes or no? Okay, this is their registered address. Now, what am I going to want to do with this registered address? I'm going to want to open up the credit report right at the bottom, okay? And I'm going to want to check that and say, does this registered address match the one that they've given me? So if you have a look at your report over here, you're going to want to look and see, okay, this is the credit report. Yours might not have that, but here's the registered name. Does it match the name that they gave me? Here is the list of the directors. Does it match what they've given me? Does it match the name? Does it match the ID number? Does it match the address of this particular business? So we're going to want to fact check all the information that we are being given. Okay, so that is your role as the level approval 1 to go and check this information and say, does this match what they gave me? If they gave me a bank letter, is the bank letter in the name of the company? Yes or no? Because otherwise, did the person, one of the directors, give you their banking details? And now, if you process a refund, it's going directly to that approver, to that director, and not back to the company. So we want to make sure, is the name of the banking details in that person's name or in that company's name? Does the registration document have a date at the top? So that's very interesting. We often see some CRO documents that were printed from 2023, but it doesn't tell you if they are in business or not in business, if if that person was giving you an old document. So does that CRO document, is it current? And if not, it's okay, because we will tell you whether or not that business is in business or not based on that credit report that we give you. So you're going to want to go and check this. The deeds of surety. Did they sign your deed of surety? Did they sign it correctly? Does it look like it was signed by the director? If there's more than one director, did that director provide us with the correct information that we needed? Okay. So these are the things you're going to want to go and check. You're going to want to click on all this information. Then we've got the statutory information. We can look at those financials that they've provided or the bank statements. We can then go and see, does that match the turnover that they gave us? We want to see who signed this application. So first of all, who said it? So it said that the signature was Amy. If I click on this link over here, I'm going to be able to see who actually signed it. Was that the correct email address to match the person over here? If not, this application was not signed correctly, because I cannot say my name is Amy, but actually the one-time PIN went to Martin, because then Martin signed it. Okay. Then we've got the, because Amy obviously selected that she was not a director, we've got a copy of her ID, and we're going to want to check this board resolution. When was this board resolution provided? Does it have an end date for when Amy can stop signing on behalf of the company? Has it been signed by a director? And does that director look like the directors on the credit report? Does it match that name? So that's what we're going to want to go and check. Okay. Then we've got our POPI consent. You can have a look at it, but there's nothing really to check there. And then, as I said, that credit report is at the bottom, so you can go ahead and look at it. So if I go back to my workflow, sorry, I just moved it to a different screen earlier. If I go back to my approval level, which is over here, here's that full report that we just looked at. Here's that credit report that we just looked at. Now, if I want to go ahead and approve it, I must say, do I want to provide the credit amount that they've asked for and the terms they have provided? If not, I must change it now. And then when I click the approve button, here's my turn to say, I checked the supporting documents and cross-referenced to the credit report. I don't see anything alarming or missing. And you can say whatever else you've checked and then go ahead and approve it, so that when it goes to the next person, they can say, aha, Amy level 1 checked these documents, therefore I don't have to waste my time and go and check these documents. I can check that Amy did what she needed to do, and therefore I can now go do what I need to do. And maybe my job is only to look at the financials and to go and look at the ratios and decide whether or not I would like to go ahead with that particular credit limit, because I know that somebody else whose job it was to check the supporting documents to say, we as a team need all of this information to make a decision and or to open the account. Did we get it? Yes or no? Okay. So I know that is a very short session. I just want to show you, and we'll post this link for you. We have created a Trade Shield Approval 1 checklist to say, what is it that you need to be checking, just so that you can become second nature. Feel free to use it online or print it and keep it next to you. And this will show you everything we've gone through now. For example, did we confirm the customer name, the registration number, the salesperson? Here's some things we prompt you to say, like, do I recognize this company? Because, and Martin and I speak about this all the time, trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, it usually isn't right. Does this company make sense to be buying from me? For example, if I sell nappies and a cement company wants to buy from me, does that make sense? No. So we need to understand, why does this customer want to buy from us? And we want to then go through the full thing. So let's go look at the full application as well as the credit report. We want to verify certain documents, and you can put this little tick list. And if you want to add this to your level 1 approval as an upload, you can do so as well. Just let us know. We're more than happy to do that, so that you can become second nature to say, what am I going to check? What am I going to check? And then give that feedback to the person who's going to check after you, so they know what you've done, so that they can do what they need to do. So that's really what we wanted to show you today in terms of, what does Trade Shield do? What does your team do? And how should you go about doing it? I see that there is a question. Could we suggest a radio button checklist against every attachment that can be ticked at a level 1 to confirm that they've checked each document validity? I hope, Renee, that this answers that question about that tick list, blah, 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 that I've put for you in the chat that is available on our Knowledge Center. Yes, Neil, you have a comment.
No, I was just pointing Renee's question out. Sorry, Emily.
Oh, perfect, no problem. Okay, so you can see that over there. Again, if you want us to add this as a downloadable document on your level approval 1, we can do that. And or you can keep it for yourself. I've attached that link, or you can find it in your Knowledge Center. You can just say, I think I called it checklist, and you can see that we've got a level 1 approval checklist over there. So you can go ahead and see that. Yes, George, let me unmute you so you can go ahead and ask your question. Good morning, George. You can unmute. Go ahead, George.
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Amy, thank you. Really great session. Sorry, we joined a few minutes late, and also one of my controllers couldn't attend. Is it possible to get a recording? Is it possible to get a recording?
Absolutely. So what we will do for you, George, is we're going to then upload it on the session, and I will pop it to you in an email as well, just in case you don't see it here.
Right. Thank you very much. Really
no problem.
Good session. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Okay, great. So I know we're 1 minute over time, so thank you so much for joining us. And Neil, thank you for allowing me to have your session, and always a pleasure to be with you. And we hopefully will see you on Credit Thursday, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.